It is the John Phillips Show. Johnny's on vacation. It's Randy Wang here. The phone number to join us is 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. You can email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and search for the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. I'm so excited that when Johnny gets back on Monday, I get to pepper him with 5 new Katie Porter drops, all from that interview with CBS Sacramento.
I don't care.
Also,
well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
I also like this one.
I'm me.
And this one.
I'm running for governor because I'm a leader.
And finally, the one where she starts talking all mafioso.
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you, and I don't want this all on camera.
And of course, if you want any drops that you hear from this show on a regular basis, we do send them out as MP3s. Just ask for them at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Our next guest is the California State Senator representing the 36th District, Tony Strickland. Welcome back to the John Phillips Show.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Senator Strickland, when the legislative year started, I very distinctly remember Robert Rivas and Mike McGuire saying that this was going to be the year that the California legislature tackles affordability in the state of California. How'd we do on that?
If you got a rating, you get an F. The fact of the matter is, they put this big roadshow that they were going to have affordability, but they had 3 bills, and 2 of them had nothing to do with affordability. And that is becoming even more of a crisis after the legislature got through a lot of bills and quite frankly, a lot of unaccountable boards and agencies wreak havoc on the people of California. One example is the California Air Resources Board. Their chair admitted when they put in these regulations that they don't take into account how it has an effect on the economy or how it has an effect on the people. And I call that the modern day Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake. We're going to create these regulations, and we don't care how it hurts the people of California and hardworking California families to try and live paycheck to paycheck.
Well, and speaking of the California Air Resources Board, there was a lot of attention paid to that board that, for the most part, to Californians is nameless and faceless, and we don't know who's appointed to it, that they were looking to update their clean fuel standards that really was just raising cap and trade fees, a program that was supposed to be phased out that now that Gavin Newsom has extended. And what that money is going towards that artificially increases the cost of gasoline in California is things like high-speed rail. But not only that, I don't know if you remember this, but the California Air Resources Board last November, they put forth a program that they were going to use cap and trade money for rebates for e-bikes because that was going to take cars off the road.
Oh, it's crazy. And then they just put $3 billion in to create another unaccountable agency called the Climate Action Climate Action Board, that will do a lot of new regulations like the Air Resources Board and the Coastal Commission. They do $1 billion a year to the high-speed rail, and everybody in Sacramento knows, as proposed, that train will never be built. And now it's $128 billion for a train to go from Merced to Bakersfield, and $1 billion a year for their pet projects, whatever pet projects they have. And what they do is they get it funded by increasing the gas tax every single year. And I will tell you, high gas prices fall disproportionately on those hardworking California families living paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of Californians have to decide between a gallon of milk and a gallon of gas. And it's this crazy notion that they think that they're going to get everybody out of automobiles, which is it's just, fantasy land. Cars are part of our culture here in California, and they want to urbanize even suburban Californians. And these policies are hurting California. In fact, we have 50% higher electric rates than the national average. We have the highest gas tax, the highest car registration fee. And a lot of this unaffordability comes right out of the legislature and these unaccountable boards and agencies.
Well, and not only that, but you look at the increases in the cost of gasoline, not only with the gas tax and the extension of cap and trade, but the fact that we just had a refinery fire in Southern California, so that's going to increase the cost of gas for a while, and we're about to lose 2 refineries in the next 12 months.
Well, and USC projected it could go upwards to $8 a gallon of gas because, as you're right, Phillips 66 and Valero provide 20% of our oil capacity in California, and they're leaving because, again, we're driving them away. And how is it good for the environment to start, importing all this oil on oil tankers from other countries? Again, these policies just still make sense. They're out of fantasy land instead of reality. And really the people who end up getting hurt are those hardworking California families who now, for the first time since the gold rush in California, more people are leaving the state than coming in. They're going to the desert in Arizona. They're going to the humidity of Florida, and they're going to the cold weather in Idaho and Montana because of the policies coming out of Sacramento.
And one thing that's really interesting, we're speaking to California State Senator Tony Strickland, serving the 36th District, the Huntington Beach area, is there was one bill that Gavin Newsom just signed that kind of has something to do with gas prices, and that's Gavin Newsom signing the bill that is allowing the sale of E15 corn alcohol in gas stations, a gasoline equivalent that is not compatible with the vast majority of cars that are on the road.
Again, another crazy idea that he has. It isn't dealt in reality. The other one that the Air Resources Board put forward that says we're going to get rid of all gas-powered cars by 2032. Glad that the Trump administration, the EPA, put a squash on that. The worst thing that can happen to California is everybody go buy an electric vehicle and plug it in at the same time. We don't have enough electric capacity today to match the energy demand today, not alone everybody going and buying an electric car. In order to meet that mandate, you need 2.2 million charging stations. We have less than 200,000. And even Antonio Villaraigosa said not everybody can afford a $60,000 new EV vehicle.
Well, and you look at the charging infrastructure that we have there outside of the Tesla network, it's pretty inefficient. It's fairly slow. A lot of it is broken because of things like copper wire theft, and it doesn't look like we're taking any steps seriously to combat that statewide issue.
And again, these are policies that they keep passing. There was one example. I fought for my crane operators, and I went to the Air Resources Board. I said, you realize your regulation, the technology doesn't even exist? And they acknowledged that the technology didn't even exist, but, we're going to create this regulation anyway because we're hoping that technology catches up. And those are the kinds of decisions that I think people are extremely frustrated. Look, if people don't like the job I'm doing as a state senator, they can vote me out along with my colleagues. But we need to rein in these unaccountable boards and agencies that create these laws that have a deep impact on everyday Californians. Every time I see a bill before me, I ask, how is it going to affect the people in my community, my district, and the state of California? And again, the Air Resources Board chairman said they don't even care. They don't even look at what economic impact those regulations have on everyday people. And instead, the legislature keep giving them more and more authority every year. We need to rein that back in and make sure that the decisions are made by legislators. So if the legislators make those crazy ideas, that we hold them accountable and vote them out.
Well, and you can see how much some of these unelected, appointed boards have so much dominion and power over everything to the point where Gavin Newsom needed to sign an executive order to make sure the Coastal Commission doesn't interfere with the rebuilding in the Pacific Palisades in Malibu. And doesn't that show you that maybe these commissions, maybe these appointed boards don't have everyone's best interests in mind?
I'll go on a limb and say they don't. In fact, they admitted they don't look at what economic impact they have. They admitted it. The chair of the Air Resources Board admitted when they put these regulations before, they don't even think about the economic impact. And that's just wrong. And we need to, again, rein in these unaccountable boards and agencies. But what did Gavin Newsom do in the cap and trade? He created another one, the climate action one, that cost $3 billion to set up. And they're giving more and more authority to people that there's no recourse. When people call my office and say, how do we get rid of these people? there's no recourse. They're not up for election, and that's not what our founders had in mind when we have this representative democracy and this republic. People need to have accountability on their decisions, and so I'm going to look at some ways to try to bring and rein in some of these unaccountable boards and bring it back within the legislature, because I do think a lot of my colleagues in the legislature hide behind these boards and agencies, and these boards and agencies are wreaking havoc, creating affordability crisis in California.
We're speaking to California State Senator Tony Strickland, representing the 36th District. One of the bills that Gavin Newsom recently signed was SB 627, which requires all law enforcement, except for the CHP, to not wear masks, even federal ICE agents and Border Patrol. Does the state of California have the authority to tell federal law enforcement what they can and can't do?
The answer is no, they don't have authority. But they're going to try to test it in court. So any first-year student will know that they don't have the authority. However, what it just came out this weekend is a lot of these ICE agents have bounties on their life or them being captive. And this is probably one of the most reckless, dangerous bills that got passed this year. We're having a crisis right now getting people to sign up to law enforcement. It's the number one role of government is public safety. And this will just make every law enforcement person less safe, especially in the era of the internet. Now you're going to put when they're off duty, you're going to put them and their families' lives in danger because of this bill. It's reckless. It's dangerous. I've served in the legislature over a decade, and I have yet to see more opposition from law enforcement to any bill than this bill, because it's reckless and dangerous. And again, this weekend it came out that there's bounties being put on ICE agents. And again, people are trying to keep us safe. This bill puts them in danger.
We're speaking to California State Senator Tony Strickland. Now, when we get to this end of the legislative session and Gavin Newsom decides if he's signing or vetoing mountains of bills, people might not understand there are hundreds of bills that are passed every single year in this legislature. From your opinion, is there anything positive we have to look forward to with this year's slate of bills?
Well, there was one bill that's only putting a Band-Aid on it's putting a Band-Aid on a big cut, but at the 11th hour, Governor Newsom did open up some oil fields in Kern County to try to prevent and bring more oil supply to try to prevent the $8 a gallon of gas that's projected by USC next year. There's a few bills that are good, but mostly these bills that have gone through in California will make it more expensive. The affordability crisis is with us moving forward. We need to do more for young people, especially. Look, a generation ago, a lot of young people, when they came out of college, they didn't have this mountain of debt that they have today coming out of college. And on top of it, more and more young people, because of the affordability crisis, can't save up for that first apartment, that first home. And many young people that are in their mid-20s to early 30s are moving back in with their parents. And that's unacceptable. We need to do better for California. Again, it's the first time since the gold rush. More people are leaving the state than coming in. But the good news is we're one leader away from prosperity. We have 6 of the top 10 public universities. We live in the oasis, the best weather in the world. We're one leader away from prosperity, and I'm hoping that we can turn this around and make California golden again.
Tony Strickland, last question before you go. In the last 7 years that Gavin Newsom has been governor, he has said affordability is California's original sin, and he has signed bills year after year after year that were supposed to deal with the cost of housing, that were supposed to make it easier and cheaper to build, whether it's SB 9 or SB 36 or the new one from Scott Wiener, SB 79. Everything that has been done over the last 7 years to make it easier to build here, to make it quicker to build here, to bypass CEQA in certain cases, hasn't actually translated to anything being cheaper. Do you think that will continue for the next year and a half?
What I say about Gavin Newsom is don't look at the rhetoric, look at the record. He had a dismal record as mayor of San Francisco, kind of destroyed that city, and he's done a really a big damaging job to the state of California. Don't look at the rhetoric, look at his record. His record is terrible. And quite frankly, he's aloof when it comes to a lot of these major issues in California, because every day he wakes up and tries to come up with a new formula to become president of the United States. No problem running for president of the United States if you do a good job, but he's not attentive to a lot of these major issues facing Californians, and he's more concerned about his race for president than actually being governor of the people elected him to do his job. I've served with 5 governors in California history, and he's by far the worst governor, and it's not even close.
California State Senator Tony Strickland, representing the 36th District. You can get him at his website, stricklandforsenate.com, or follow him on Twitter at SenStricklandCA. Tony Strickland, thanks so much for coming on with us today.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Let's go to Ken in Campbell. Ken, hello.
Yes, hello. Great. What a great interview. I'm loving what I hear from this station.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, I have 3 points. Number one, we should call it Corruptifornia. We have too many liberals that are destroying this great state. Number two, Michael Savage said liberalism is a mental disease. And that's fantastic. What it is.
And what's number 3?
I love the place. I'm old, but I still got to stay here. It's just fantastic. We got to get rid of the liberals. How do we do that? That guy was fantastic. Go ahead. Continue.
I think what we got to do is what we're trying to do here every day, which is explain exactly what is going on to the average person, how it is affecting you, and point out the people that are the cause of some of these policies that have led to some of these problems. Thanks so much for the call, Ken. Appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words. That's what we do here, and we're so glad we get to do it every day in Southern California on 790 KABC and Northern California on 810 KSFO, and also streaming all around the world, because if you have a phone, you can listen to these radio stations anywhere. If you ever miss an hour of this show, like today's 12 o'clock hour with that Katie Porter interview, all you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. Whether it's the Apple Podcast app, iHeart,
Little D,
Spotify.
please.
Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
You can do a Google on the YouTube. You can get the free KABC app, the free KSFO app. There are so many different ways to listen live to our radio stations and download all the podcasts. If you'd like to email us, you could do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Sarah in Chino Valley, Arizona writes in, "Hey, Randy, where can I find this interview to watch? This is groundbreaking. The interview she is talking about is this interview where Katie Porter tried to walk out of with CBS Sacramento."
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you, and I don't want this all on camera.
So I'm going to tell you exactly how I found it. Get on YouTube and search for CBS News Sacramento. That is CBS 13 in Sacramento. Some of these stories also run on the local stations KPIX in the Bay and KCAL in Los Angeles. But this story comes from Julie Watts. So search for CBS Sacramento, and then you go to their videos, and you will find one a little ways down. It's 30 minutes long, where 2026 California governor candidates stand on redistricting. Click on that video. It's got timestamps for all the candidates and all their answers. The Katie Porter question that we played you in full comes in at about 13 minutes and 43 seconds. Share it with your friends and let everyone know what you got to hear for the first time on this radio station.
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
She's a gem. Hey, look at this. 790 KABC welcomes John Wade at the Canyon at the Oxnard Performing Arts Center October 18th. Tickets on sale now at AXS.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by the Canyon, where music meets the soul. Good luck dialing. Johnny's on vacation, although every time he goes on vacation. Every time something happens that makes him wish he was on the air. I think this time it's the Katie Porter interview, because I'm telling you right now, he would have loved to be here to hear this live with all of us today.
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
I was filling in for Johnny about a year and a half ago, and Johnny was on a cruise ship, and I had to work solo the day OJ died.
What's going on, America?
Johnny got to miss out on that one. But to be fair, I got screwed over by this once too. I was on vacation the day that Shang Tao's house got raided by the FBI.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
By the way, if you want to hear the 12 o'clock hour, I just posted it. Search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcast, or go to KBC.com or KSFO.com. Share this one with your friends, because as far as I know, nobody really knows about this sound yet. So share it with as many people. You can get that YouTube video from CBS Sacramento if you want, but you could also share this podcast. Katie Porter threatens to walk out of a local TV interview.
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you, and I don't want this all on camera.
Hey, let's go to Robert in Santa Clara. Robert, hello.
Hey, Ray. Thanks again. Mr. Strickland, and you guys are all right. It's this fuel tax. You know, has anybody ever thought of where the slush fund of the surplus of the gas tax, where it goes? And it's got to go to Gavin's political stunts and all this. I mean, the waste in the state. But you can imagine these restaurants having to put up with this freight inflation, and it's the most unfriendly to these poor restaurants. Many have been shuttered through the pandemic, and they can hardly make a dime right now. When are we going to get correction on this? An offset sales tax of 0.2% added to the general sales tax would alleviate the fuel for freight inflation and trauma, and that's what the Republicans need to run on. We need to bring down the consumer price index in this state. It would help the whole United States.
Oh, it totally would. And that is a message that people need to run on. And that's a message that needs to connect, because the current people in charge have set affordability to their blue in the face, and everything's more expensive now than it ever was before.
And those minimum wages that they talk about, they don't mean anything. They just put the businesses out of operating service. And Burger King is like a $5 Whopper now or whatever, and a lot of them can't even stay open in 24 hours like they used to help a lot of poor people and give them jobs and people who need healthy eats for cheap, and they can't.
Well, and what's interesting too is with a lot of these wage increases, like the in Los Angeles, the tourism workers that are going to be getting $30 an hour by 2028. That pops you into a higher tax bracket. So now the state and the feds are taking more of that paycheck.
It's absurd because, $15 used to mean a lot more than the 30 that they're proposing. And that this is where all the Democrat math is askew for some of their agenda. I mean, what? Unaffordability, route people out of their homes, private equity buys it up. I mean, what is going on here? Who wants to lobby in this policy except for who's benefiting at the top? The thieves.
Just you wait. It's getting worse, Robert. At the top of the 2 o'clock hour, I'm going to play a story of how restaurant owners and other business owners are now getting sued over their receipts. And that is something that is a very California story. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for the call, Robert. Appreciate it. Let's go to Greg, listening in Napa Valley. Greg, hello.
Hey, hello. Man, if there was ever an election for a Republican to come in and steal the election, this is the year. I mean, there's nobody running. I mean, I haven't heard of even a quarter of these people, and the charisma is just not there. We need Dwayne Rock Johnson to come in with his beautiful smile and come in to steal a show and get a Republican in there for California.
I will say this field of candidates is very, very weak, and there is very little name. If Katie Porter is the biggest name ID out of this entire mess, there is an opportunity for somebody who has a lot of money, because it's very expensive to run in this state, to come in and make some changes. Could that be Bianco? Possibly. Could that be Steve Hilton? Possibly. Could it be Rick Caruso? We'll see. But The field is still wide open, and I think we just showed in that interview that even though Katie Porter is the front runner right now, that's not going to last too long.
Nope. Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Now, Katie Porter wasn't the only one with a terrible answer on that Prop 50 question in this interview with CBS Sacramento. But why don't I go ahead and since, he brought up the Republican candidates, if you were wondering what Bianco and Hilton had to say about this and about Prop 50 in this series of interviews, because this interview was with every candidate, including the independents running and the Green Party guy. Let's hear what Bianco had to say.
What's your opinion of the governor's plan?
I think it's horrible. I think it's let me tell you how broken something is by telling you I'm going to break it more. Murder is not acceptable, so I'm going to go murder you. Death penalty. He says the death penalty is not acceptable, so he just did away with it. It doesn't fly. It flies in the face of his decision to do this. He's saying this is wrong, so I'm going to do it too. He's saying the death penalty is wrong, so he's not going to do it. He isn't going to do it just because we told him we want him to. That's what the voters wanted. He's going to do what he wants to do. So this is a perfect example. I'm going to tell you all that someone else is breaking the law, so that means I can break the law.
And I think that's a really, really, really strong point. Let's hear what Steve Hilton had to say about this.
How do you feel about the governor's redistricting plan?
Well, it's totally corrupt, and it's unconstitutional, and it's illegal, beyond even the constitutional changes that he's trying to make through the ballot initiative that he's trying to get on the ballot. In fact, I'll be filing a lawsuit challenging its constitutionality in federal court, which hasn't been done yet by the various opponents of this. But let's just... I think that hearing actually is going to be after the election. But let's just take a step back, which is, we all agree, I think, that politicians shouldn't draw their own maps. I mean, that's obviously wrong and corrupt. Common sense tells you that.
But isn't that what Texas is doing?
So Texas is following its constitution, however. So Texas didn't change its constitution.
Yeah, but what they're still doing is wrong, and you can still say that.
To take the power to draw the maps out of the hands of the politicians, put it in the hands of the people, which we did here. No one wanted this. There's no one in California saying to the politicians, please, give us new maps. Well,
there might be now, because they're out there,
I know, but it's lower gas prices. Give us lower housing costs. Give us more jobs. That's what people want. So I would much rather this whole thing.
It is interesting for a special election to be on such a niche, complicated issue. I am very curious as to what turnout is going to be. In fact, I already signed up for the PDI reports, the political data firm that puts these things together, and we'll be tracking the daily results of how many ballots have been returned, how many people who already got their ballots have voted, because you could vote today. You could be voting right now. Let's go to Daniel in Rohnert Park. Daniel, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great.
Where do I start? First of all, I got to make a couple small corrections to a couple of your last callers. Whoppers are not $5; they're $12. Last I checked, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson supported the Democrat Party, so we definitely don't want him running. So I see this as a huge opportunity for a Republican, especially with the fixes that have happened to the voter polls in the last 6 months or so. This is a huge opportunity to turn California red, but I really, really believe that we have to get behind one candidate. And I'm not so big right now. I'm worried more about my eyes are more on the prize of shutting 50 down. But I know there are a couple people running for, a Republican ticket for the governor race in 26. I know there's the gentleman that I really like a lot. He's got the accent. I forget his name. And then there's the sheriff. And I don't know if they run against each other, if we can beat a Democratic ticket in 26. And that's what scares me. It's almost like we have to get these two gentlemen in a room and have them kind of do what like Kennedy and Trump did, where, one of them goes, hey, you got more of a following. I'm going to get behind you. Bring me into it once you get elected, and let's take this state back. I see that's how we're going to win this thing.
Yeah, with current polling, it shows, and current polling doesn't mean a whole lot because we're over a year out from this thing, but the current polling shows Porter in first, and then it's either Hilton or Bianco in second and third. So if that holds, then it's going to be a Democrat and a Republican in the top two. But you're right, if more people get into this thing and more diluted this thing gets, you could have two Democrats competing against each other in November, and, we've seen how that turns out.
And I got to say, one of my biggest issues right now is, and I don't know how much of this is true. I consider myself an American history buff, but I'm not some scholar. I'm a mechanic. I run a city government police fleet, but. As far as I know, that there are stipulations in the California Constitution to keep somebody like Gavin Newsom doing from what he's doing with Proposition 50. And if that's true, why can't somebody higher up step in and go, hey, dude, knock this off. This isn't legal. At what point? And believe me, I'm a Trump supporter. I am a red, white, and blue God-fearing man. But at some point, with all the shenanigans that have gone on with the Democrats in the last, let's just face it and be honest, the last 40 or 50 years, at some point somebody's going to have to be made an example of. And darn it, Gavin Newsom is that guy. Step in and show this guy that this is not okay. And I really hope that and I get it. To the Trump administration is federal, and they have a lot of things going on right now, and he's dealing with so many skillets on the stove. But at the same time, it's like this is huge. And a lot of people are talking gerrymandering this and gerrymandering that. And from what I've read, in 2020, the Democrats gerrymandered Texas. And the certain communities sued and said, hey, we're not being represented here. And the judges in Texas were ordered to put those counties back to the way they were before 2020. Well, when that happened 6 months ago, that's when Gavin Newsom set up gerrymandering, which in actuality we were just fixing their gerrymandering from 2020. So what he's done here in California is just, as a single father of two daughters, as somebody who's ready to leave the state, I really hope that we can not only get a different governor, a different aspect or different values in office for California in 2026, but a huge part of that is going to be knocking this 50 down. I'm just wondering what your views are on 50.
Well, I think that we see the polling right now on 50. It's barely got 50% support going into people actually voting, which is not a place that you want to be. I think a lot of people are confused by it, and a lot of people, as evidenced by these interviews with these gubernatorial candidates, have shown that it's really hard to defend this position if your argument is, we don't like what's going on in other states, so we're going to do the exact same thing, but in a transparent way. It sounds incredibly inauthentic, and I think the more people pay attention to this, I don't necessarily see this thing as passing, even in a very partisan state like California. There are certain values that you would imagine a lot of people have, and one of those was that we want independent redistricting, and we don't want our legislators picking their own seats.
Correct, yeah, okay. Well, hey, I got to run, brother. I just want to say I'm a huge fan. I'm a diehard patriot, and for all those people that are out of California that think that there's just a bunch of blue voting crackpots here in California, there are patriots here behind enemy lines, and we love our country, and darn it, we're going to fight for it.
Thanks so much for the call, Daniel. Appreciate it. It's so funny. The whole term of red state and blue state drives me crazy because, this is a massive state. There are more Republicans in the state of California than many other states combined. That being said, there are also more Democrats in the state of Texas than many states combined. Yes, the majority is one party, but that doesn't mean that that's the entire makeup of the state. This is a very diverse state. So is Texas. So is Florida. Let's all learn how to get along. And let's not all put one party inside, because whenever you have one party ruling everything, whether it's California or Alabama, it's not working out great, is it? Let's go to Doc in Petaluma. Doc, hello.
Hello there, Randy. How you doing?
Doing great.
I'm telling you, that I don't know how Newsom got away with his. They should have voted him out when they had a chance. He takes the extra money from the gas tax, and he spends it on a place over in, where is it, Kentfield or whatever, or someplace for $12 million. I mean, the guy's ridiculous. I know the fast train or whatever it is. I mean, he's got another 10 years of gathering up for that. I mean, the guy's going to make a bundle of money to put into a campaign to be a president. Who voted for this guy? I mean, I think that they must send out the ballots and then throw them in the trash and count them up the way they want to do them. And with his 50, they'll apportion the state to where everybody will be watching all the Democrats leading every poll, while they're ticking it off on election day. I mean, it's nuts.
I will say it does look sometimes like there's got to be something going on here with the way that certain elections play out. But if Gavin Newsom and the legislature had full control over our elections, if our votes did not matter and they could pick the outcome of any of these things, there's no way Prop 36 would have passed with 70% support. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Again, you have to look at the people in charge. They're too incompetent to be rigging this system. And you look at what they're doing right now with this bungled rollout of Prop 50. Even that is not necessarily the smartest way they've rolled this thing out. It's so confusing. And most voters in California are apolitical. Most voters barely pay attention until they have to because they got their own lives to worry about. They're not watching cable news. They're not listening to talk radio. They're not knee deep in this every single day. And they'll look at this and be like, what is this about? And I don't know necessarily if they're going to vote. If you're wondering, by the way, as of yesterday, of 23 million ballots that have been sent out, 4,000 have been sent back. Let's go to Linda in Burbank. Linda, hello.
Yes. The problem we have is this jungle primary that Schwarzenegger put into place. This is how Newsom got elected, the jungle primary. There has to be a way to get rid of this jungle primary. There should be a petition to get rid of the jungle primary.
I think it's something that it's a bizarre system that we have in California. It can make elections incredibly uncompetitive where people feel like they don't have a voice. But I do have to say, in Gavin Newsom's two races, he did go up against a Republican. He just went up against a very weak Republican in both of those races. And unfortunately, he won. Thanks so much for the call, Linda. Appreciate it. I mean, can't really blame the system when John Cox got second place the first time. And then we decided Brian Dolly was the only guy who was going to run in 2022. It's the John Phillips Show. When we come back, we're going to hear another candidate try to explain their morality on why it's so important to vote yes on Prop 50. Let's get to Betty Yee, who for some reason is still running for governor, and hear what she had to say on Prop 50.
40% of Californians voted for Trump.
Yes.
What do you say to those voters who say, I'm not aligned with this narrative?
Call it what you want. But at the end of the day, it's about who's going to represent your interests in Washington. And so I like to have the conversation more about how it's going to affect people's lives. And obviously the press and how the campaign's going to unfold will be at this level in terms of, the president intervening.
She's doing an incredible job right now of being unbelievably boring and saying nothing.
Will be at this level in terms of, the president intervening, Texas changing the lines, California responding. But really at the end of the day, it's about who's going to represent California's interests throughout all of California back in Congress.
And for Californians who live in red districts now,
yes,
and who want that representation, what do you say to them when they say, yes, but this is going to take that away from me?
They still have representation. They still have a voice at the ballot box when they vote for whomever they believe is going to represent their...
But you called it manipulation. I mean, it literally is being redrawn to be a blue district as opposed to a red.
No, only what they're doing is manipulation. What we're doing is not manipulation. It's a hard sell.
Yes, it is, but it still includes them. And I would hope that they would look at the candidates who are running.
But I'm sorry, but by definition,
yes,
the whole point is to outweigh their vote. right?
Well, it's to keep par with what the impact would have been in terms of gaining 5 Republican seats.
Right, but for them specifically. So let's say I am. What's one of the districts you were talking about? Where these rural districts?
Yeah, up in North State, Shasta, Siskiyou County.
Okay, so let's say I live in Shasta, and I am a lifelong Republican, and I absolutely want a Republican representative in Congress. And for years, I've had one. Now someone is saying, you still get to vote the same way you vote, and all your neighbors will still vote the same way you vote, but that vote is now being diluted because we're going to put in all these other votes.
By the way, nobody's making a better argument against this than a local reporter in Sacramento just asking the base common sense of, what are we asking people to do here? I love it. Yet another great local reporter in California, Julie Watts of CBS Sacramento. It's Randy Wang here on The John Phillips Show.